Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is November 25, 2022. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here today with Natasha Maidoff. Where in the heck you calling in from, Natasha?
Venice, California, not so far from you.
Isn't that cool? We're in heaven. The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
The best thing for a human being? Oh God, I think to find ways to enjoy life, because we're here for a short time, and I think it's to find your own sense of adventure and explore your where your curiosity takes you. Really, I mean, I think that it's about finding what things really interest you and hopefully being able to pursue those in a meaningful way. Yeah.
Totally agree. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Oh, wow. Well, my first favorite is probably dreams. I mean, I just love the abstract nature of dreams. And then I think that I love, I mean, I definitely am a visual person. I love looking at things and understanding them through body language or landscape or composition. I don't know. I just, and then information. Yeah. I mean, reading books, being taken into another realm. Yeah, those are probably my top.
That's good. You really covered the waterfront there. I agree with you totally. In fact, Elvis Mitchell's new film, which again, I really highly recommend, Is That Black Enough for You? It's basically a 2.5 hour tour through Black cinema, 68 to 78. An amazing line starts off. He says, my grandmother told me when she started to go see movies that it shaped her dreams. That movies shape your dreams. So it's good you said dreams the first one. I agree. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Why do humans collect and gather information? Wow. Well, I think that we're just it's part of being curious and trying to make sense of the world. Is that what we, starting from a very young age. I mean, babies are trying to make sense of the world, so they're constantly, like I remember my older son wanting to know where the pipes went to in the shower and how the water came out, and I think that like why the water came out, and I think that we just collect information to understand where we are, why we're here, what is meaningful. Information. I think I think as an artist, I'm constantly collecting information because I feel like it helps whatever, it gets more parts on the table. Like you understand this thing better because you've found out about this other thing. So I think it's a way of, just finding more fascination in our existence. Yeah.
Really good, Natasha. And do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate in humans or more invented by humans?
Oh, I think it's innate. I think that we're born curious. I think all animals are, really. I mean, we all need to collect information to survive. So I think wherever we are, whatever tools we need to collect them quickly, and we continue, I think, hopefully until the day we die, collecting more tools. Yeah.
Do thoughts create emotions?
They can, for sure. I mean, I think you can go from feeling very happy to very sad if you focus. If you remember something really sad, you'll get into that spot. So I think that thoughts have a very powerful effect on our emotions, for sure.
Yeah. Fill in the blank, Natasha. I don't know what I think until I
have written it down.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. And Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it.
Oh, really? God, I didn't know that she said that too.
You're in
No, I
good,
find that good company. Yeah.
good
No, I
company.
feel like since I was 9 years old, I started keeping a journal, and I slowly have realized that I don't really, it's my way of making the world more cohesive, is writing it down, thinking about it, reflecting on it. There's just so much, again, we have so much information that we're collecting all day, and it's a way to synthesize it. And actually, for me, it's a calming thing. I know that some people meditate, but for me, always the writing was the thing that centered me.
Totally with you. I'm there because people watching this, they see my eyes go down all the time, and I want to keep eye contact with you, but it's because I'm writing notes, and I can't write notes without looking at my pen. So it is same. I love your two verbs, calming. I love that verb. It calms you and centers you. Those are two things that writing definitely does for me. Can humans think without language?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I have a friend who's disabled and he can't speak very well and he's blind, but he definitely has language and ideas that he wants to express. And
Yeah,
I've been trying to help him express some of those ideas. So yeah,
it's
for
great.
sure. I think they have a lot going on with or without words.
Yeah.
For sure. We
Well,
feelings. Yeah.
yeah. Well, Chomsky says a language is a culture,
A language is what?
a
Sorry, you cut
unification.
out for a second.
Yeah. Chomsky says a language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work, when language breaks down?
I get really frustrated, scream, throw I don't know. I mean, I like when language, I mean, it's like in what context does language break down? I mean, if it's in a family dynamic, I probably, yeah, I'll lose my temper. If it's which I don't like to do, but I'm a reactive person. So I think that for me, my body language is always go take a walk until I can get back into a brain that can find those words and can find the place to speak again, or I have to go write it down, go write about it. And I find my words and my language that way. Yeah.
It's really good, Natasha. And what I really appreciate is your honesty. I get frustrated. I mean, you believe when people, one guy said, though, a line you'll love. I says, what do you do when language breaks down? He goes, group hug.
Oh, really? Wow. Good for him.
But see, really,
I wish I could get that evolved, you know.
yeah, but the beauty is to see what I'm with these conversations, I'm after bare bones honesty, and you put them into the context you want. So then you said, I get frustrated. Well, if it's family, I might take a walk, so that you really get what I'm after. This is just like casual, bare bones, honest communication. So I appreciate it. Now your observations of humans in general. I know it's a stupid question, it's both, and it depends, but are we more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
I think we're really more feeling beings, which I think otherwise we wouldn't have wars. I mean, I think that people have really thought about it, you know, but people get so emotional and so visceral about their ideas that they want to do something brutal, like injure someone else. So I think that we actually, and if you, again, you know, you go to having had 2 children, I've raised them from the moment they're out of my body, and they are feeling things before. I mean, that is how they're thinking. The feelings are their thinking.
Yep. Really good. And so these are 2 questions from Alan Turing, 1950s. Is thinking
Can I
a
wait for 1 second? Sorry, I just want to unplug my. It's distracting me. The humming of
Sure,
this.
sure.
Okay, there we go.
No, I thought it was.
You.
No, I thought it was cool that we had it for 10 minutes, but I'm really glad. That's fine. Super cool.
I'll put it back on in a little while. Go ahead.
If you like, you don't have to. These two questions are from 1950s Alan Turing. The first one is thinking a function of the soul?
Thinking a function of the soul. I mean, I think it's interesting because I don't think that the soul really has thoughts. I mean, I think the soul is beyond thoughts. So a soul might be affected by your thoughts, but I don't know if the thoughts come out of the soul. Maybe we yeah, I mean, I just have never thought of those two things together. Like our soul, like first it's like, what is the soul? So where would do thoughts come from the soul? Maybe, I mean, I think that maybe if you take, a step further, I mean, back, maybe say, okay, well, the soul has feelings. Like I sort of almost feel like the soul is more this feeling thing that doesn't have thoughts, but that because you have feelings, you then have thoughts and that you evolve. And so I think they do probably filter out. And so I think that, as an artist, I think that we do, like, at least for me, when I'm making work, I am connecting, I think, to what my deeper self is, or what I'm interested, but for whatever reason, I gravitate towards certain ideas and certain things. And I think it's not meaningful to me unless it is somehow, I think that is sort of the soul, maybe, that thing wants to be expressed. And so those are sort of, my thoughts, I suppose, and they do find a way out, but it's much more abstract. Like I think of thoughts as concrete, because they have periods at the end, but and they're spoken out loud, but the soul is more abstract.
Yeah, totally agree. The second question Turing asked was, can machines think?
Well, I guess that's one of these big thoughts that people are having right now about, can you, what's going to happen with artificial intelligence? I like, my gut instinct is no. I don't think machines can think. I mean, I just think they don't have souls. They are generated not from organic matter, but from metal and electronic pulses, or, I mean, I'm not exactly sure, how it works, but I just feel like it's like saying if like a machine can have a soul and this doll can have a soul, it's like, you're like basically, it's something that someone built. And I think we have lots of fantasies about it, and it's an interesting thing to think about, but I just don't think a machine could maybe think it has a soul. And a person we project right now, we play with our Alexis, and we make her say things or not say things, or turn on, turn off, and it's funny. It almost feels like this person, but no, she doesn't have a soul.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine. And I think she could be designed because you can give birth to a baby and that baby has a soul. I mean, first of all, you have to believe in souls, I suppose, that we are more than just organic matter, right? And but if a human is organic matter, a baby gives birth to organic matter. A machine is made from organic matter, I suppose. I mean, it comes from the earth, but it's not there's no internal organs to it that are, I don't know. I think there's something to being flesh and bone and blood and and maybe that's just, again, my feeling and my perception, and my mind is not broad enough to accept that a machine could evolve into a machine that could have feelings. Like I'm not there yet. And maybe that's just my own limitation, so.
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Oh, well, meaning for sure. I mean, I think that happiness, I am someone who pursues adventure. Like I'd like to try to find the adventure in whatever I'm doing and meet the person who's interesting. If I go to the dog park, I'm like, okay, I just start talking and asking questions. But I think that what I'm trying to do then is find meaning. Like fun seems like, I don't really even know, like fun without meaning is not fun to me. So
Yeah,
I guess, yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness? Like, is consciousness bubbling away and we're creating it or detecting it?
Is consciousness bubbling, or say that again, or we're creating it, or we're
Like consciousness bubbling away. Are we detecting it or are we creating it?
I feel like we're detecting it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's there, and the more aware we are, the more we can understand it. I mean, I think I'm always better or happier, having more fun, if I am more in touch with what is going on underneath, like
Yeah.
my basic circuitry. Yeah. Yeah,
I love
for
that.
sure.
Underneath. That's what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of light. I don't think there's anything faster than speed of light, is there? I mean, I guess I feel like thoughts, like they just take more time. I mean, you can think quickly, you can respond quickly, but I think that ultimately, there again, it's like going through the filter of your soul to your feelings to your I don't know. That's how I
Right.
am. Yeah. I
So
don't think
Audre
I'm.
Lorde, go ahead.
I said I don't think I'm like. I mean, I can be quick, but and sometimes I have these amazing sort of um, just inspirations or epiphanies and inspiration. Like it's like you just get it. But
Yeah.
still think light is faster. Yeah.
So Audre
Sorry, go
Lorde, the
on.
poet, Audre Lorde, the poet said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded, said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
Who's the master?
Yeah. So you win, Natasha. This series is all about inventing new questions. Who's the master? Well, I think in Audre Lorde's case, it was
No, who's the
probably,
master? No, sorry, go
yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
in Audre Lorde's case, it was probably white supremacy, but it's again, you put the questions into the context you want. So the master may be your own brain trying to make art, or the master may be the college, hiring you to teach art, or the master may be the museum who's going to buy your piece of art, or the master may be
Right.
whoever. So it's really about tools. Like she says, you can't dismantle the master using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer says you can if you expose the tools. So, again, I always say you put it into the context you want. You don't even have to apply the word new. I say, what new tool do you suggest? And sometimes people think tool implies tangible, something tangible, but
Yeah.
tools don't necessarily mean tangible. And again, it's really me and you are navigating the wording on the question. So I'm totally open to being challenged, like, well, who is the master? And then I just say,
Yeah.
well, you put in the context you want. Or, I mean, in essence, we could leave it at that. Who is the master is enough. It's questioning who is the master is the new tool.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like I feel like whoever the master is, you need a different tool. So like I first would need to find out what is it that I'm trying to break
Yeah.
into, Yeah.
Well, let's go. Let's go on, because a lot of this stuff comes back around. What new
Okay.
toy do you suggest?
New toy?
Yeah.
What new toy? You mean for humanity or for, oh
Again, you
man.
put for
Yeah.
yourself or for humanity. Yeah.
A new toy. I mean, if there could be a toy that would teach people to treat each other fairly, I don't know what that could be. Like it's like, um,
That's
I studied, yeah,
that's a
I
good toy.
studied, Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead. You studied what?
Yeah, yeah. I studied mime. I think we talked about this in our last interview
Yeah.
10 years ago. And there's this thing where you can like create anything and you don't hurt anyone. Like you can create and you can be anywhere. It's kind of like what people are trying to create with virtual reality. It's like you can create it in your mind. You don't need to put a device on your head. And so if everybody could learn how to use weapons that were, mimed weapons or cannibals, like they could have all the fun of blowing everyone up and having big things, but it would not hurt a soul. I mean, like something like that where it seems like people have this
Yeah.
desire to hurt. I mean, we wouldn't be able to win though. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, a toy.
Well,
Like
you're
fun.
anticipating a lot of questions we're going to get into, but I'll tell you what your answer evoked, which was beautiful. Robin Williams, the comedian, said we should fight wars with rubber chickens. You throw a rubber chicken at the other.
Yeah. And he actually he was saying it, so it's the same. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, he came out of mimes. Yeah. So what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Probably first my children. Like I'm concerned about that they can achieve their dreams and pursue things that they're interested in and live a prosperous life and find joy. I think that's my first concern. And I do worry about climate change and how is that going to affect my children? What are the right choices? What actions can I take? How do we find both the financial stability that can allow them to continue to live a prosperous life? I mean, I'm concerned about the planet really and about the world. And I'm very sad about what's happening right now.
Yeah. Well, let's go into artists. Maybe art can save us because Marshall McLuhan said that he learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might be able to cope with what we don't like about the inventions. So, Natasha, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
So by our hiding the psychic inventions. Wait, say that again. We're hiding.
Well, no, it's not we're hiding. It's that we invent things, cars or cell phones or spoken word or printed word, and it has hidden psychic effects. It changes us in ways other than how the invention was intended. So
right.
we thought, wow, cars are going to do all these great things. And everybody has a car and nobody thinks cars ruin the world, but they have hidden psychic effects. So cars basically enhance private mobility. Instead of moving like a pack of wolves together, like a bus or a subway, we're all individual in, these tin cans. Yeah. So it enhanced private mobility, might have been a hidden psychic effects. So then artists sort of broadcast these hidden psychic effects, but we ignore them. And so the question is, why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
You say we, but I guess I feel like I'm in the artist side of this thing.
Right. But I'm saying,
I can't say we. Because I
no, that's good. But I'm
them.
saying artists in general. I mean, I'm saying humans in general. So that includes, the real problem with the way I word the question is it sounds elitist that, artists are above humans. And I think everyone's an artist in their own way, whether you're a garbage collector or a painter. They're doing their art. Or better yet, the Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
yeah, so it's sort of like that. I don't mean to it to come off as sounding elitist, because you're
Right.
first, like me, a human, and then me and you are like, well, we're an artist, so I'm saying
Yeah.
just as a human, you know
Yeah.
and then if you can answer it like, I don't know, because I am an artist and I do see these. I am broad.
Well, I mean, so your question brought up, like, made me think about a few things. One was that I remember learning how when novels started being written and printed and distributed, that also stopped people from going to plays. And so we stopped being communally connected in the same
Yeah,
way because we could have these very private experiences, and I can't say, I think that reading novels privately at home has been a wonderful evolution for humanity. I mean, it's like that
yeah,
hasn't, I think it has put us in contact with those deeper things. It has reached out.
yeah,
I think that the antenna just isn't long enough. I mean, I think that we, there's, yeah, I mean, there are these tools, and yeah, instead of them actually helping promote humanitarian sort of actions or treatment of people throughout the world, you know, it's actually ended up that I just think that there my conclusion has been that there are a lot of people who are just really malfunctioning and
yeah,
don't really respect other people, don't respect and can't live with people thinking differently than them. And I guess art should really teach people it like I remember perform again, I'm going back to mime, but I remember being in Italy and we performed this mime piece, and everyone, we could, it didn't matter that we didn't speak, or most of the troupe didn't speak Italian. They could understand everything. It was art, just like you look at a painting. Everyone, no matter what language you speak, you can look at a painting and understand the story that's being told. You might not understand the context or the culture, um, but you can get something out of it. And I think when we had this experience in this small piazza in San Giovanni Valdarno in Tuscany, of everyone being able to see our plays, it was great. But then we did this one play where it was about people getting on and off an elevator. And no, most of the people in that town had not been on an elevator. This was back in the 80s. So, and so like they didn't get that piece. And so in some ways, I think that we can't be successful in reaching all the tenants because not everyone can has the same context or the same
yeah,
information, and so then they can't actually draw the same conclusions that we want them to. And
yeah.
if people are being taught different ideas, and my belief is that, okay, do unto others as you'd like others to do unto you. I mean, that's just such a
Good.
basic thing, the golden rule. I thought that's the only rule I've ever needed. And so
That's good.
uh,
Well,
it's not the fault of the inventions that
mm,
they've turned into these machines for war or vitriolic banter online and all that
yeah,
stuff. I mean, it's like
well,
you think that now that we can communicate, we can actually come together and find
yeah.
ways to agree and basic common ideas. I don't know.
Yeah, this commonality. We're going to touch on this in a couple questions, but I'm curious, do artists have moral obligation?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think everybody has a certain moral obligation. I mean, it doesn't mean
Yeah,
that you can always um, manifest it or that you always behave correctly. I think we all make mistakes, and we all have times when we haven't behaved morally, um, and sometimes I think making art, you take a risk, which is sort of, you know, but in the end, maybe it's the right thing. It ends up being a good choice. So I think artists are sometimes asked to do things that might be immoral for their art to have meaning. It's just like I don't know,
no,
like you, yeah,
that was good. See, two of my film heroes, George Manupelli, his mantra is ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression, and Cecil Taylor says I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technology, cultures, and environments are dominant?
Mm. Well, I think it, from me, it's probably self-expression, but I can't help but be affected by what's going on in the culture and the life that I've led, the people that I've met. I think that that's part of what attracted me to living in Venice. It's sort of the Chautauqua West, where you have great ideas and people coming together. Knowing you all these years has been, yeah, I mean, sort of fascinating what you bring to Venice. I mean, it's just, there's like a, um, so my self-expression, I think it is, yeah, at the core, I am, there's something that is me and something that I guess some people say it's like filtering through, you know, some other, you know, what is inspiration. I think it does feel like when I'm inspired by something outside myself, that it does come through and I'm supposed to create art from it. So it does, in a way, it does feel like, oh, you know, I saw that amazing mountain. I have to shoot something. I have to sleepwalk across that mountain. And so is that like, you know, nature, Mother Nature, like saying, you know, come on, like show the rest of the world how beautiful this mountain is. And I, you know, want to, I mean, a lot of people would say higher power or God or whatever. But I wasn't brought up that way. So for me, maybe nature inspires me, and people who are, you know, certain people move me. And so I guess that's.
Natasha, that was good. Thank you for the kind words. Can art making be egoless?
Probably not. No, I don't think so. I mean, I think people can think that they've left their ego outside, but I don't know how that's possible, because when you're making art, it's filtering through you, and you are you, and you can't possibly say this invisible force is doing it, not me. I don't know. We don't know really why we are so compelled to do things, but I just don't have, I don't know any way to not, to feel like, oh yeah, this isn't me, this is something else. I guess I feel.
Well, you know, you really evoked Auden the poet. Said, the mystery of art is that we don't know if it activates or pacifies us. So the beauty of what you just said that I received from your words was, I don't know why I'm compelled to do this. That's the mystery of art. That's the beauty of art. If you knew, then you're like, oh my God, because, you know. So are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I'm not afraid of either. I don't think the fear is part of it. It's like, no.
Right on.
I mean, I love my old ideas and I love my new ideas. It's just isn't enough time for me to do everything I want to do. I mean, I just don't think fear is part of it. I mean, I think I feel guilty all the time because I'm not able to finish this project. Like I have several projects that are on the burner, you know, like, and I just, it's like, I will not rest until I finish the next thing, you know, just, and I won't, and then I'll finish that thing and then it'll be the next idea. So,
and then the next one.
Like if I had fear, if I had fear, I don't know, there might be like this, there's a fear sometimes of sitting down in my chair and focusing. I think that's the only place fear comes into the project. It's like, oh, you know, I think I've begun to trust that whatever idea I take on, whether it's a new idea or it's finishing an old idea, who I am now is better at finishing it and doing it and executing it than who I was, you know, 10, 20 years ago. So it's just like, I think it's more about, it's not fear. It's like patience and diligence and persistence.
Indulgence. It's like Warhol says, don't worry about what people think of your art. just keep making it. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, man.
I love that. So can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Yes. Well, one of them was the first time I ever danced, and I remember I was under a table, and I remember going back to the kitchen where this memory comes from, and the table is like 2.5 feet off the ground, and I remember being under the table, and I heard music, and I started to dance, and I just I remember exactly how I danced, and I thought I was the grooviest person in the whole world, and that made me really happy.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
I think it's a blessing.
Yeah,
Yeah. Again, having just met this, made this friendship with this disabled person a year ago or last spring, and he has short-term memory loss, and makes me really appreciate memory. It's a
yeah,
way of having building blocks. Yeah.
beautiful. Tell me just briefly, someone within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, who had an impact on you, like a role model, and what specifically was the impact?
Tell you specifically a role model within my family or
Yeah,
outside
like
my family.
someone just briefly, someone in your immediate family and then outside your immediate family.
Okay, so yeah, well, I'd say within my immediate family, I mean, both my parents are artists, and my dad is a brilliant painter, and my mom's a brilliant sculptor. And I think that they both, um, my mom's more of a figurative artist, my dad is more of an expressionist. And I think that having both that example from both of them being that art is important and has meaning, and that also they are compelled in the way I am. So it felt it didn't feel strange that chose to become an artist and
Yeah,
was compelled to make work. Um,
yeah.
and outside the
Then
family, who I'd say the person who was Keith Berger, who taught me the art of mime, actually. Yeah. So
nice.
um, yeah,
So,
that was
did
about
you
learning about story, and through that you could tell it's about through emotions. It was a
yeah,
different kind of corporal mime, or where you were learning, and you have to. American Mime Studio in New York. Paul Curtis was the director of that school, and the thinking was it was really a cross between dance and acting, and so it was taught you how to create pieces. So I think it helped me trust in myself that I had the ability to do that. I don't know, to make stories, short stories, and I, yeah. Anyway,
Natasha, do you pray?
I'm trying to learn how to pray. I mean, praying for me always was was a religious activity, and I was not brought up as a religious person. So praying to me sounds alien, foreign, wrong. Like it sounds like you're asking for something that you don't deserve. I don't know. I
Yeah,
feel like it's like this sort of begging almost.
yeah,
But I've begun to learn and evolve in this and understand that people can have a very profound relationship with this thing outside themselves, whatever they want to call it. And that's the word they use, just like use the word God. But for me, because if you're not programmed with those words, it's interesting because they don't mean the same thing. To me, they seem like arbitrary myths that people have decided to buy into, or not buy into, but but I think it gives people a lot of pleasure, joy, and meaning to be involved in different religions. But
yeah.
so
Harold
for
Bloom's
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
Harold Bloom said it so well. He says, "Do you believe in God?" He says, "I don't like God and I don't trust God, and I wish God would go away, but I know God won't because God's built into our language. He's part of the way we think. So, if God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?"
You lived a magnificent life.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Evil people exist. I'm sure of that.
Well,
I don't
there's
think
the
it's I don't think there's a devil that's evil that occupies
yeah.
people. No. So I
Well,
mean this again comes from my experience of living on a farm. We had a horse that we raised from, he was like a few months old. We were really kind to it. We'd gotten it. It was been bred it was a special quarter horse. It had great sire, a champion sire, and we were very loving to it. And it became a vicious animal and would
wow.
just like try to kill you and hurt you. And we sold it to someone else who had ended up breaking their leg. And it went on to be an atrocious animal. And I thought, oh, this is definitely innate in some creatures. And so
Wow.
that really taught me. So I feel like some people just have some innate cruel gene. And maybe it can be taught too. I mean, I think definitely it can be taught.
Yeah.
But that's being taught by another human, not by another force. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the hidden question really, Natasha, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set up with a few thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is Natasha, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Well, I don't know how you can't acknowledge an enemy
Yeah.
because they exist. I mean, it'd be like being blind or like, people come into your life. I suppose it's all perception. Well, they're not really my enemy. They just don't like me. I don't know. I mean, it's like context or using a different phrase, but there's people who, yeah, I mean, maybe, do I have an enemy? I don't think I think of anyone as an enemy. I've had a few people who have turned on me and been cruel to me. But even those, so would I want to keep them closer or would I want to? I mean, I think it helps us psychologically to not consider that we have any enemies.
That's
But
good.
I don't think, yeah, I don't, and some people spend a lot of time hating other people. And so to pretend that there aren't enemies and there can't, an enemy, but how do you deal with it? I mean, how would I deal with, it depends on the severity of the enemy. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to like bring you know, you know, Nazi soldier into my house. It's like, I'm Jewish. I'm not going to like, but how would you, um, I think that always it's the same thing. It's like, where is our commonality? Where do
Yeah.
we agree? Can we agree? I mean, I think I do want to get along with all people, but I think that again, we sometimes belief systems can be so different that they create violent feelings towards each other. And yeah, enemy, it's such a big word. And they do exist. And what's the solution as an art? Like, do I keep it? I think the goal is always to try to befriend. I mean, to find common ground. Yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Finding
But I don't
common
think it's always possible.
I so much agree with that, finding common ground. In fact, James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Yeah, I think about that because, like, why do I want to watch a TV series rather than be engaged in something in my life right now?
Yeah.
And I realize, oh, it's because we feel like we're learning something. It's helping us. It's helping us affirm. Uh, there's something like the choice even of the films or the TV series right now that I choose to watch are usually I stick with it if it's like something I need to understand about this other thing that's being shown to me. So a tree, would I just go and watch a tree on TV? No, or on go to a movie theater. Maybe if there was wind blowing through the tree and then a bird flew in and then someone walked by and someone climbed up and someone else had a conversation. I mean, like you then it helps us, I think, experience something outside ourselves. It's not God, but it engages us and moves us past maybe, the dishes that are in the sink. But it's not just entertainment. It's like um, we're being transported and transcending. Maybe sometimes it's about, you need you have a cathartic moment or you're moved. We want to be emotionally changed from before we want to sit down to after when we leave. And so there's some kind of shift. And I think that's why we go to art. That's why we want to look at paintings. That's why we listen to music, is to feel emotional shifts. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. So just walk me through, you went and studied mime. You've done many things, dance, painting. What was the tipping point when you pursued film specifically? When did you go, oh, I want to do that?
Well, film was always sort of trickling, like it was like a stream that was running by my house. I mean, it's just like there's this. I was given the bowl, a Super 8 camera when I was 11 by my stepfather, and I didn't know how to use it, so I had to figure it out. And film was really expensive, and developing it was really expensive, so I had to be very careful with my shot choice and I was really like becoming an early cinema filmmaker. I was living in Maine. I had no education in film. I barely saw films. We didn't have a TV. Like we lost our mom got rid of our TV when I was 9. So but it was fascinated me. And so then I was always keeping journals. I was writing, drawing, went to Oberlin College, did creative writing, started writing plays. And while I was writing plays, I still had my Super 8 camera, and I got fascinated with this young woman named Lexi Mitchell, who's redheaded. And I had her do this play where she's playing Duck, Duck, Goose. And I think that I made that film. And then I remember she gave me this little card for my birthday, and it had a director's chair on it. And that card that she gave me made me think, oh my God, could I be a director? I really do that? Could I make movies? And then it evolved. I worked for some newspapers, freelance after I graduated from college. And then I had a friend who was sold a screenplay. He was at USC, and he said, come out to LA. And so I went to UCLA for screenwriting, actually. So it was still sort of writing. It was when I was at school at UCLA is when I started making my first films, and they did well. They played well. And I wasn't satisfied with just writing. Like I think it's both being the performer and writing plays. Like I wasn't satisfied. So I have continued to make work no matter what the budget is. I never have stopped. I can't stop. So yeah. I wrote big, budget films, but I then would go and shoot something on a Bolex or a Super 8 and high 8 and 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter, whatever it was. I would just make work. Yeah. And so it's beautiful. And I think just to finish that sort of was after I finished, after I made my first film and was editing, I was like, oh my God, this is where all my skills that I've collected, because I also play piano and did a little bit of songwriting in college. I was in a band. So it was like, it just made sense to bring together all of my skills. It was like being a Renaissance woman and find a way to take all those things and create something out of it. Yeah.
It's sort of great because the mime to me was such a great basis for you in being a creating writer. So using a pen, you're using a camera, using a paintbrush, you're using keyboard, but it all, like, now go do it all with nothing in your hand. Just be a mime, you know. I think that contrast really gives you this big picture, but bringing up screenwriting was perfect. You must have ESP. The next question is, a screenwriting teacher told me great art or great film is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great film is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're making a film or writing a film?
Well, I think that I always have my own intention of what I want, of what it's about. And then I don't really care what people, I want them to get something out of it. And so, but it doesn't have to be exactly what I intended. Um, and do I want people for it to be obvious? I mean, my screenwriting schooling that I learned was like how to orchestrate a script in sort of Hollywood standard fashion, and that you know, you do set things up, and you do give enough hints so that people might be able to figure it out. My main concern is that I want to keep feeding information so that that hopefully that it can be like a detective figuring out a puzzle of what's the story. I want it to, it's not compelling if you know everything or if you can predict everything. I think that for me, it really frustrates my kids, because if I'm watching a movie and I see how everything's set up and I can immediately, I know exactly what's going to happen, what's going to come back in the second act and the third, and that you know, I find things too predictable to be not that interesting to me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You really, you know, the symbolist poets got from Edgar Allan Poe, effects precede causes, or Mallarmé, the poet, said it best. Don't paint the thing itself, paint the effect it produces. So it's like,
Right.
you know, you're more understanding what the effective. So you sort of answered this, but I got to ask it anyways. Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your viewer when you're making your film?
That doesn't come into it at all in the beginning. Like I think it really would inhibit me if I thought about that too much. I do want people to see my work, and I do want to make work that people want to see, but I don't think I'll make good work if I care too much about who's going to be the audience and whether they're going to come or not. I mean, I think an artist needs to have the independence and the freedom to initiate ideas that generally that might not seem on the outside so fascinating to other people, because I think if you start sort of guessing what's going to sell or what's going to be commercial or what are people going to like, or you are not going to get your most authentic, your most profound work. And I think the closer you get to the things that you think are really going to suck, like really be terrible, the better the work is. I mean, I've found that many times when I'm writing, you know, or making films. It's like you get afraid because you're putting stuff out there, and but that might be actually the things that people really want to hear. And
That's it.
so if
Beautiful. You brought up courage and risk, those words before, but Peter Greenaway said cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. And you talked earlier about how what you learned from your mime teacher was story. So, you know, Hollis Frampton says narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Can you forget to die?
So the question is, can I forget to die?
Yeah.
Or I mean, can you read the first part of that question again?
Well, there's two quotes. Peter Greenaway said that cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. So this
Right.
idea of story, of why the human has to tell the story, or why are we so compelled to narrative in telling stories? But House Frampton has an amazing quote. He says, narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. So, it's sort of the really hidden question is why do we tell stories, and is it innate or invented? And then how is that connected to us knowing that we're supposed to die? So, if we're waiting to die, the question is, can you forget to die? And, it's like a little deeper, is like, is this storytelling instinct in us innately, or did we invent storytelling?
Okay, so I think definitely storytelling is innately in us. I think that we
Yeah.
all know how to tell stories with beginning, middle, and ends. We have, we do anecdotes with each other. I mean, I tell my students this, um, but I think that I think that we make art possibly. I mean, the cavemen, whatever, would make it so that they could communicate a story, or tell, or count, or do whatever it was. But I think now I think it is innate. I think certain people, I mean, especially if you're an artist, you cannot not make art. So I think, and we cannot make, and art is
Yeah.
telling stories, whether it's on paint or
Yeah.
through a symphony or whatever. There's a beginning and there's an end. Anytime there's a beginning, there's a frame around a picture. It's not, so I think it's maybe a way for us to create immortality. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
that line in my film, The Orange, which is, it's a way for our insignificant, it's a way for our insignificant selves to be made immortal or something.
Yes.
So the artist,
Beautiful.
yeah. So, but I don't
Yeah,
think
it
that
is.
sort of self-hating artist is saying that, not this artist
Yeah.
who loves themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it helps me die or not die, or what, like, I have this thought that, after I die, my kids might just like, are they going to look through any of my writing, and are they going to be interested in all the stuff that didn't get published or didn't get screened, and what will happen to my films? I don't know. So I think art for me is pursuing ideas in the present, in the moment now, to interact with other people. And it comes from something innate. So I suppose, did that answer the
Yeah, no, that was
question?
beautiful. It's a big subject I'm tackling right now, is archiving. Because in my opinion, Natasha, just find an archive will take all your stuff, because your kids, if they don't value it, they'll throw it in a dumpster, and a dumpster diver like me will find it and go, wow, this is amazing. But it is like, why do we feel so obliged? Oh my God, my archives are so important, because you nailed it for me. Just live in the moment. What difference does it make? Be here now. But I talked to Michael Apted 40 years ago at Vidiot's, and I said, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? And this is right when MTV was breaking. And most people don't know rapid montage was invented in 1922 by Abel Gance, but in 1980 it was flourishing because of MTV, to the point where Marty Scorsese says, I cut my films faster because of MTV. So I asked him that question. He says, because we've learned to take in information faster. So I asked this question with a bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
I think that we do, and whether that means that we don't, I think so. When you read something quickly, or when you go through Instagram really quickly, what's the collage that's being made inside us? I think oh yeah, we can definitely do it. but it's like, what are you taking away? How much of the experience?
Yeah.
Like if you watch a really slow Tarkovsky film or something, like you're like taking away in the poetry of the moments, the beauty of the framing, the, you know, sensuality, whatever it is. It's like there's whereas, you know, if you're watching something really quickly cut, yeah, I mean, I found that Everything All at Once, I mean, that film that came out
Yeah.
last year,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
had a lot really fast cutting, and it was brilliant. But like 2/3 in, I thought, okay, it's going to end now, and then there's another third of the movie because I couldn't. It was like too much for me. It was brilliant, but it was just like I was getting on sensory overload, and I couldn't. My kids saw images that I couldn't see. Like they said, "Didn't you notice that thing, that montage?" And it's like, I guess I'm gonna have to watch it again because, and to my younger son, it was like the most brilliant film he's ever seen. So
wow,
he was
see, that shows you the generational difference is huge because same thing. The film is just mother-daughter drama with a spoof of action films. It's really good, but it's like, yeah, totally agree. But the hidden question of the last one is, can humans literally multitask?
Again, it's this thing where we do
Yeah.
multitask, but something is lost. There's a compromise. I mean, you can't. I don't think. I mean, some people. I think I've seen some people can watch TV and write at the same time, and I'm like, how can you be doing both those things at the same time? And they can take in 2 lines of dialogue at the same time. I can't. So maybe we're training some people, but I definitely think that your experience of something is like when someone really experiences something, it's in a singular plane. Like I don't think you can. I think you need to take in one thing at a time. And but I think that when things are like, I've even had films on 3 frame. I mean, you saw like 3 channel, you know, projected images, and I think it created an interesting environment. But I think a single frame channel film is just as powerful, and maybe you can be absorbed more. But it's an interesting thing to play with if it's purposely orchestrated to have like a left and a right. And I mean, if it's a piece of art, I think it's planned. If it's just like, okay, I'm going to listen to this podcast and watch, you know, the soccer game and do my homework, you know, whatever it is that my kids are doing. It's, you know, I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Well, Natasha, you brought up framing. I really appreciate what you said. And I really feel you're communicating to me well. I thank you so much. But you brought up the word framing, and I'm curious, what informed your framing aesthetic? What taught you how to frame the way you frame? What do you think contributed?
That was definitely my father. I remember when I was 13 and 14, I guess I was 14. Yeah, there were 5 years that I didn't see my dad from age 9 to 14. And the first summer I saw him, he had moved to Italy, and he took me to Venice, the real Venice, Italy. So it's sort of ironic. I live in Venice, California. And he had given me a camera, and he started teaching me about composition. He's a painter. So about negative, positive space, you know, leading the camera in, you know, leading lines, frames, diminishing perspectives. And I started thinking about framing at that time and really started to enjoy it. And so I would think about it when I was drawing, think about it every time I'd look through the camera. And with film, it's trickier because with film, you know, it's not a still camera. You have to think about framing as you're moving or as the subject's moving, or, you know, so it's resetting so that there's always an interesting composition going on. That's like an art, and it's kind of like a dance.
Yeah. It's beautiful because Jean Cocteau had a great line. How'd you form your your framing aesthetic? He said, the way they put the knife and fork on the table. You know, that's because, you know, we could be framed like this, like actually, you know, you are framed really artistically, sort of off like this, and the horse is there. whereas everybody is the standard Zoom framing as their heads in the middle, you know? And I thought this was an amazing, because also how the light just came off the side of your hair from your kitchen window, or the window in the
Oh,
back,
wow.
you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I've got a little, yeah, I definitely am like,
yeah. So it was like the bright light and then the horse blackness. It was great.
should I put the horse? I'll turn the horse back on. Hold on. Would you like the horse back on?
Oh, I don't care.
On.
It's your choice. Your choice. It doesn't matter. I think this is really fun. So
Okay,
what's
yeah.
more important, conviction or compromise?
I say conviction. I think that's what I think, but I think that I need, like, compromise is always, I suppose it's sort of like that idea of trying to keep your enemies close or whatever, make friends with your enemies. Compromise is sort of the same thing. It's like you have to, I think compromise is really tough, and it's very tough. I think I was born a very opinionated, strong-minded person. And I was determined. I was like a tomboy. I was determined not to have to be feminine and defer and be lesser than my brothers or anyone. I just had that attitude. And I think, but women are taught to compromise, and I do compromise more than the male partners I've had. Definitely,
Wow.
But
What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
I think that men act sure of themselves, even when they're not, and women will admit that they are feeling insecure or like that other ways to approach something quite often. I mean, that said, I'm someone who definitely has a lot of convictions and becomes very stubborn, and we'll get into arguments, and my mother was the same way and is the same way. Yeah.
You know, it's funny, Natasha, because there's a cliche I throw around a lot. Women know and men suppose. So it's like, that sort of goes along with yours that says men act like they're sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hold on, my power says it's going out, but I was plugged in. Hold on a second. I need to make sure the power's on. This thing is not on. Okay, that's good. Yeah.
So T.S. Eliot said poetry's outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Yeah, you asked this question of me 10 years ago.
Oh, I was hoping you would tell me which ones I repeated, because this is a tradition. 10 years apart. I've interviewed a few people 10 years apart.
Oh,
but
yeah.
So do you remember what you said, and would it be the same answer?
Yeah, I said dreams. That's my first language, my interior
there
language,
you
which
go.
I guess yeah.
Is perception reality?
Yes. I mean, I think that we can't see beyond our own perception. I mean, I think that I've listened to some of these podcasts on invisibilia, and it's interesting, or any kind of science program where we don't know what we're not seeing. So our reality is our perception. Yeah. I don't think we can really get past it.
Yeah. Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Oh, I love that question. Yeah, I mean, I think that belief, I may hope for, I would like to believe in 6 impossible things, like world peace, turning around the climate change reversal. I mean, I think that every day I am somewhat of an optimist. I think I'll go from one way to the other. It might not be morning before breakfast, but I'll have times where I feel like everything is possible. Anything I want to do and anything my kids want to do is definitely manageable. It will happen.
That's cool. Tell me one major element, Natasha, of your creativeness since you've started, since you crawled out from under that table and realized you could dance. One major element that stayed the same and one major element that's changed.
Mm. Well, I think the major element that's stayed the same is this impulse to create. And I think you did ask this question as well before, but like I think that I've never stopped wanting to make things and express things and have my ideas that are interior be externalized in some way. And I think the thing that has changed is I think I don't get down on myself as much as I used to. I mean, I think I
Yeah.
used to be really self-critical, and I think now I'm like, oh yeah, you've got some strengths. You're not perfect, and that's okay. So I think I've learned to accept myself as an artist, and it took a long time. I might not be making a lot of money from it, or be able to make as many films or complete as many things as I want, but I actually think, oh, you're good at what you do. So that's huge.
No, Natasha, you're good. You're great. I loved showing your films at Beyond Baroque, and I've always appreciated your art. The robot film you just sent me was amazing. What was the title of that again?
It's called The Motherboard. It's an excerpt from a symphony. It's Il Scherzo. So there's going to be it's called The Motherboard Symphony. So that's one piece of it.
No, it was brilliant. It really touched me. And so Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
I think actually one of my things is I don't feel very fluent when I speak my thoughts. Like my writing was how I thought, like the Joan Didion thing.
Yeah.
And so speaking, I've learned that, okay, like actually in your cues to how to prepare for this meeting, I went back and I looked at the email and it said, don't worry about taking pauses. That's okay. And when I watched our film, our interview from 10 years ago, I was like, oh, I was making all these pauses. And I felt so much shame about it because I remembered I felt awkward. And the awkward plays so beautifully. It's like I show this vulnerability and this, and that I'm not, can't say a canned answer to every question you ask me. And I make mistakes. And even, when I'm teaching at USC or at Chapman University, I sometimes these things happen. I suddenly lose my ability to speak, but I've now learned that I can get it back. And so, or I can get over it. And that just because for one moment, I'm kind of, fumbling, it then ends up more cogent in the end.
It's beautiful. No, I love saying that silence is okay. And this guy I interviewed yesterday, he would just go, and there was just these gaps of it felt like 10 to 20 seconds. And it looked, and in Zoom, you think, oh, they froze. And I mean, complete silence. We're both frozen. And like McLuhan loved to say, the gap is where the action is, that you could step back and realize that the interview we did at Beyond Baroque, that was cool that you thought, because I ask these heavy philosophical questions and go, I couldn't answer that right off the bat. I would have to think. And my favorite was George Carlin's daughter, Kelly. She would hear the question I asked, all these questions I've asked you, she'd hear it. She would crack up. Then she would take a big yoga breath. And then she would start talking, I'm not expecting, but it's funny, that people do feel that in a conversation, when you say something, you're supposed to respond immediately. And it's not, I try to make it like that so they don't feel like they have to respond immediately. And, having silence is okay. But the other thing you evoked was one of my favorite Frank Zappa lines is he said, I'm a failure, but I'm not a miserable failure, and
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
so what if, a gazillion, like I even read your creative coach little blurb where you said, if 10 people see your art, fine. What's the, now it's like 80 million hits or 10. Like, it's so,
Right.
I'm so over that. Like all my
Yeah.
events at Sponto were 60 people packed to the gills. Then after cell phones came in, it would be like 5 people. And I was like, so what? I don't care, but it's
Yeah.
hard to, people want to judge you on that. So we
Yeah.
got about 15 more minutes. This has really been fun and I really appreciate it. So here's you talked about music and just there's 2 music questions I sort of want to ask. One is Ben Ratliff, the music writer, says, I mean sound as it is long functioned among jazz players, as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard in a single note or like 2 words. So like if we heard Miles Davis, we could go, oh, that's Miles, with just a note or 2. And he would say the 2 words to describe Miles was fragile and pointed. And for John Coltrane, he said slightly undercooked and urgent. So if a writer was describing Natasha's art, what 2 words would you feel most honored that would capture Natasha's like sound or Natasha's, in film, whatever, what I mean by sound, like the Natasha look of a film or the Natasha read of a screenplay. Like what 2 words would you really feel honored that they captured your sound?
Well, when you were saying that, I wrote down sensitive and compelling, but I don't
Good.
know if that's really,
No,
but
sense.
I feel like yeah, I
I
feel like there
love
could
it.
be better words than that. Yeah.
No,
Like it's just,
no, that's really good. The other one
poetic.
was,
I mean, poetic and sensitive, people sometimes say, but poet and, yeah,
no,
mystical,
I would,
maybe. Yeah.
what was the other one?
I said poetic, mystical. I said, yeah, but
Oh,
that's not really
mystical. Yeah.
there. But but it's also fun. I have humor. I have sort of this weird humor sometimes. So sometimes it's sort of
Yeah. Humor
no,
is good too.
uh, yeah, it's kind of,
But Natasha, my other friend says the 3 T's of music are technique, theory, and taste. So, you've learned the technique of making art. Sort of art theory because you're a teacher. How does one acquire taste? Like, how do you gravitate towards this filmmaker and not that filmmaker, or this painter and not that painter?
it's such a subjective thing. I mean, I think it definitely goes back to what you're exposed to when you're younger. I mean, when I was younger, we would go to see Charlie Chaplin films and in New York City. First, I was in New York City, and then we moved to Maine. But uh, so and I had a rich, like my seeing my dad's art, seeing my mom's art, always being taken to museums, going to museums on my own. I mean, I think that, but what did I gravitate towards, and what did I
Yeah.
go and see again? And what books did I reread? I mean, I liked The Secret Garden, like was a book that I loved. I loved that idea of there being a secret place where you could
Yeah.
create a magic flower garden. But the taste of like, what do you respond to? What looks good compositionally? What pulls you in? For me, like composition is really matters a lot. Color palette pulls me in. What if I feel emotionally connected, the truthful, like in terms of film, you need to feel the characters are important and are compelling, and it's yeah, it's subject matter. Like there's but a taste. What is taste? Yeah, because it's something you can't teach actually. Like I realized this after many years of teaching film students and writers, is that I can talk about composition, I can talk about, production design, but where do I get it? It's like since I was a child, I was obsessed with clothing. Like I insist, my grandmother gave me a leopard skin hat and pearl earrings, and I insisted on wearing them to preschool. And my mother and I had a huge argument because she's like, "No, my daughter can't wear leopard skin hat to school." And my mom now thinks like that's why I became, sort of like it like just drove the nail in. Like I was like, that never stopped. Like I have this relationship to color and to clothing and style, and that manifests in other ways in terms of yeah, production design. So when you're making a film, you're definitely looking at what's the set, what's the location. I always have my students search for locations. For me, it's like a location is enough to make me see, like I want to shoot something here. Like the end of The Fullest Day of Summer, there's this amazing, magnificent cave. It's tremendous. And I once I saw that, I was like, I have to shoot something here. And I didn't know what and then I find a way to put it in my film. But that, and again, it's like, how did I decide to frame that shot? It's just training your eye and feeling, it just feels right. I think to a certain extent, it's like having taste buds or something. It's like, what tastes right? What's the right amount of salt? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you use the word truth too. And I like that. You really described it well, because most people answer, how do you acquire taste? Through exposure. But you took it a lot deeper because you talked about the composition, the color, the set, and that was really important. But Louis Buñuel says, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. And most people go, oh, that's cool. I like that. But one person challenged me finally on that and says, if I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it. So I morphed it into this question. The cliche goes, the journey is more important than the destination. Why do we have to name or seek a destination if the journey's more important?
We feel like we need to have a place for going. Yeah, we have a purpose. We're looking for purposes. Like it's like, why are we alive? What are we going to do with our lives? Oh, I want to go here this weekend. Okay, that gives you a destination, a reason to put gas in your car and pack the picnic lunch and go there. Or just like we need, and it's very much that way as an artist. I mean, you have a vision of what you want your project to be, and then you need to figure out what those building blocks are, and that's where the real work comes in. But once you're done, it's almost like a lot of people fall into depression because like they finish the film or they play is over or the show is done. I don't know if Susie feels this way after preparing for a show, but it's it's like it's over, and then what? Okay, well, I need to shift into I always have something else cooking, because I know that if that journey is over, you need another journey to begin. So, I mean, you can have journeys end, but you need to appreciate that. Yeah, the process is pretty much 99% of it, of developing,
that's it.
With film, because,
yes. Yeah. It is so much. And I really appreciate this poet, Fanny Howe. I found this quote. She said, the point of art is to show people that life is worth living by showing that it isn't. So it's a real paradox. It's like, well, it's worth living up till the point I make my piece of art. Then I got to go find another piece of art to make. But, it's an endless process. So here's 5 Alan Watts questions, just off the top of your head in a couple words. The first one is, who started it all?
The Big Bang. That started, again, it's like, what is it? What are you referring to?
That's good. I like the Big Bang. Second one, are we going to make it?
I mean, as a human race, I hope so. I mean, I hope somehow, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that aside from all the atrocities and everything, music, art, um, shared laughter, deep conversations, philosophical passages. I mean, it would be I feel like it'd be a shame for it to all go away, but I guess we go away. So, I don't know.
That's good. Third one, where do we put it?
Again, it's like where do we put it? I don't know what you mean. Where do we put
Well,
art?
I think Alan Watts is putting it, the word "it," in a general sense. So again, you put it where you can
put it wherever I want.
Yeah, you can put it in the context you want.
I guess maybe if we've said it in this case would be, you know, where do we put inspiration? You know, where do we put, yeah, you know, for me, it's art.
Good.
Where do we put caring about humanity into trying to make maybe art that is meaningful? Yeah.
Yeah. Fourth one is, who's cleaning it up?
Mm. Yeah, little by little, we try to clean it up. I don't know. I don't think anyone's cleaning it up right now. I think,
Wow.
Yeah.
Fifth one is it serious?
Yeah. I don't know what it is again, but I think life, you know, the challenges, what, you know, if we're talking about humanity surviving, yeah, it's serious.
Very good. So, Natasha, I asked for 90 minutes. Can you go a few minutes over, or you got to go now?
Sure. No, I'm fine.
Okay, we'll just go a few more. Thank you so much. It's really been fun and enlightening. How do you find peace of mind?
Right now, I go horseback riding. There's a horse I ride up in Topanga.
How
And
cool.
we take off into the Santa Monica Mountains, and it's a really beautiful place. And every time I go, I'm like, oh, this is the meaning of life. This is like,
Nice.
it's like my happiest time of the week. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Susie was raised on a horse farm, so I know people who know how important horses are. It's really a beautiful thing. Yeah.
You must miss it. Yeah.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
This is another one that you asked her.
Did I?
10 years ago. And I said, have more confidence. And I suppose, you know what I'd say is like, trust your vision. Don't, you know, just keep being you. Yeah. I think that's what I'd say.
That's good. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Under.
Wow. Why?
I guess because it's further away from the toilet then.
Yeah.
I think that's, yeah. Yeah. I know.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography, off the top of your head, what would the title be?
A different animal.
Beautiful. They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Pine trees.
Beautiful. If a statue was built, say it again.
Like balsam, you know, that weird, like Christmas
balsam.
tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that smell. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed, and what would it be made of?
It'd be in marble, maybe bronze, but and it would be me on a horse, and maybe the horse would be prancing. And what was the third thing? What would it be labeled? Did you say?
No, where would you want it displayed?
Where would I want it to be? In the Venice Circle.
Nice. Windward Circle. I love that place. You're a true Venetian. That's like the nut meat, the chewy caramel center.
Yeah, they haven't really made it work yet. It's still
Yeah.
not like, yeah.
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something good that I never had and I never want. Huh. Um, well, I probably a family with a lot of children.
There you go. That's a good answer, actually, because people,
Yeah.
the answer I get the most, fame, money, and heroin.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
I think that the fact that people are so fascinated with watching stuff. I mean, even though I think it takes up people a lot of time. People are creating, and they're sharing a lot of their creativity with each other, and it's easier than ever to distribute your work. So I think that's been one of the great things. Yeah.
It is amazing. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. It's amazing how, the film art form, the moving image art form has blossomed, you know.
Yeah.
Two more and we're out of here. This is Thornton Wilder in 1928. Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes, Natasha. I'm not implying you haven't already answered this, but what's it all about for you? Again, you put the word it into the context you want. What's it all about for you?
Um, I mean, it's about making the invisible visible, right? It's
Right.
about uh,
That's good.
finding something that's important to say or to explore. I mean, it comes back to the beginning too, because it's about one's curiosity, and then a way to communicate with others. And yeah, I mean, I think that that's what it's about.
Yeah, I like your dad's website. He said, art is not reality, it is a totem.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful word. I looked up the etymology on the word totem. And, it's family, emblem, mark. So, last question is what gives you the most optimism?
Um, hmm. I think when I see just how beautiful the world is, I think I
Yeah.
feel that is, yeah, like whether it's walking along the beach or taking a walk in the mountains or seeing a beautiful tree, taking a ride. I mean, yeah, that's when I feel most optimistic.
It's really beautiful. The first question was, what's the best thing for a human being? And Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the last question is what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he says, other people. So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person. Thank you so much, Natasha. I really appreciate you and all your art. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me for this conversation. Ciao. Bye-bye.
I'm going to hit the end broadcast, but I hope this never ends. Thank you. Thanks so much. See you in
Bye.
Venice.